She jiggled the handle 3 times. Then paused. Then tried again. The same metallic clunk, like the lock was laughing in her face. And I watched it all from the upstairs window, lights off, heart racing, breath caught somewhere between my ribs and throat. She was wearing the red coat. The one she usually only pulled out for special dinners or fake work trips. Her hair was perfect. Lipstick still untouched. She had that glow, the kind that doesn't come from love. It comes from being wanted. But not by me. Not anymore. She knocked. Once. Twice. Then pulled out her phone. My phone vibrated silently on the nightstand. Margot, wife. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked downstairs, slow, steady, the way you do when every step might shatter what's left of your spine. I stood just beyond the door and listened. Miles? What's going on? The key's not working. Her voice. Still calm. Still assuming I'd come rushing. But I didn't. Because 2 hours earlier, while she sipped wine across the table from a man who wasn't me, I paid a quiet locksmith $189 and a slice of my dignity to replace the locks on the house I once thought we'd grow old in. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was acceptance. Acceptance that I was no longer the man she looked for in a crowd. I had become background noise. A utility. A chair she used and never thought about unless it creaked. I remember the exact moment it broke me. It wasn't a kiss I caught. Not a message. Not even a voice. It was her absence. We were in the kitchen. I was making chili. She was scrolling her phone. I told her my sister's biopsy came back benign. I was choking up, honestly. She just said, "That's good," without looking up. Then laughed at something on her screen. That night, I cried in the laundry room. And tonight. I changed the locks. She knocked harder now. Called again. Then. Bang. 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 Miles, seriously. Let me in. It's freezing. I stood on the other side, trembling. Not because of fear, but because for once, I held the power. I never asked for it. But it was finally mine. I picked up the phone. Pressed answer. "Margot," I said, voice steady, "this isn't your home anymore." The silence after I said those words, "This isn't your home anymore," lasted exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds where the entire world stood still, and I swear I could hear her brain rewinding the past 5 years in real time. Then came the laugh. Not a funny laugh. Not a nervous one either. It was that incredulous, offended, "You're joking, right?" kind of laugh. The kind of laugh you give to someone you think you still own. "Miles, open the door," she said, her voice sliding into that sharp, corporate tone she used when waiters brought her the wrong wine. "This isn't funny." But I wasn't laughing. I sat down on the bottom stair, phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the shadows of her heels through the frosted glass. She shifted her weight, probably assuming this was just some petty tantrum. She had no idea this wasn't a tantrum, this was the final scene of a play I'd been performing in for far too long. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just said, "Go back to him." She fell silent again. Then hung up. Outside, I watched her pace. She tried calling again. And again. 5 times in 5 minutes. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. First angry ones. Then confused ones. Then pleading ones. The last one just said, "Why are you doing this?" I should have ignored it. But I didn't. I typed slowly, shaking a little. "Because I'm finally done pretending you haven't been lying to me for months." Her response came instantly. "Miles, I swear I can explain. It's not what you think." And that made me laugh. Actually laugh. The sad kind that hurts your chest. Because what I thought was happening, the secret dinners, the perfume that wasn't hers, the way she always kept her phone on silent lately, I didn't just think it. I knew. I had proof. And she had no clue. I hadn't told her yet. Not about the email I read by accident 3 weeks ago. Not about the call I intercepted when she left her Bluetooth on in the car. Not about the photos I'd been sent anonymously last week. Someone, I still don't know who, had taken pictures of her and the guy at a rooftop bar. One of the photos showed his hand on her lower back. Another showed them walking into a hotel. Together. I had been sitting with those photos for days. Nights, really. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't think. I just kept staring at them, trying to make the guy look like someone else. But I couldn't. He was real. Tall. Tan. Smug. And definitely not me. So I changed the locks. And now she was on the other side of the door, realizing the script had flipped. For once, she was the one locked out. For once, I wasn't the one waiting up. The strange part? I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Like I had just stepped out of a foggy dream into a quiet, unfamiliar room. After 15 minutes of silence, I saw her finally walk down the driveway. I don't know where she went. I don't care. But I stayed up until 3 a.m., just in case she came back. She didn't. And yet, by morning, the story had only just begun, because when I woke up, my phone had 6 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, and 1 voicemail that changed everything I thought I knew about what she was hiding. I didn't listen to the voicemail right away. I saw the notification, stared at the unknown number like it might explode in my hand, and then set the phone down like a coward. I made coffee first. Took a long shower. Walked the house barefoot like I didn't know every creaking board. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was off. Whoever called me knew something. And after locking Margot out of our house the night before, I wasn't exactly in the mood for mysteries. Eventually, I sat on the edge of the bed, held my breath, and hit play. There was a pause. Some background noise, cars passing, someone coughing, a faint ding of an elevator. Then a voice I didn't recognize. "She's lying to both of you. I thought you should know that." That was it. No name. No explanation. No return number. Just 11 seconds of static, anonymous truth dropped into my lap like a live grenade. I played it again. Again. Every time, the voice sounded colder. Like he wasn't just informing me, like he was warning me. Or taunting me. I started to spiral. Who was the message from? Her lover. Someone who knew him. A coworker. A friend? I ran through every man I'd ever seen near her, the gym trainer, her boss, that weird neighbor 2 houses down who always waved too eagerly. My mind wouldn't stop. Out of desperation, I did something I swore I wouldn't do again. I opened the hidden folder on my laptop, the one where I kept the pictures I didn't ask for but couldn't delete. Whoever sent them had done it anonymously through a burner email. I thought they were just trying to hurt me, and honestly, they succeeded. But now, I realized, they might have been trying to warn me too. One of the photos suddenly caught my attention. Not the guy. Not Margot. The background. There was a man in the reflection of a restaurant window, standing alone, holding a phone, pointed directly at them. The same guy in 3 different pictures. Same jacket. Same posture. Same witness. Later that day, Margot sent me a message. Not a text. A video. She was sitting in a car, makeup smudged, eyes red, and she looked small. Not the sharp, confident version of her I'd grown used to. This version looked tired. Scared. Miles, she whispered. I need to talk to you. Please. It's not what you think. It's worse. That last word stuck to my ribs like glue. Worse? What could possibly be worse than what I already knew? I almost didn't reply. But I typed one word. Where? She responded instantly. Somewhere public. We met at a small cafe halfway between the city and the suburbs. Not the kind of place we ever went together. It had rickety wooden chairs, crooked table legs, and one of those chalkboard menus with way too many swirls. I chose it on purpose. I didn't want this conversation to feel familiar or comfortable. I didn't want her to feel like she could reach across the table and make this right with a pout or a tear. I needed distance. Space. But when she walked in, it all collapsed. She looked like someone who had rehearsed every word on the drive over, but forgot the script the moment she saw me. Her eyes scanned me up and down like I was a stranger who just happened to wear her husband's face. She didn't sit down right away. Just hovered there, clutching her purse like it was some kind of shield. Miles, she finally said, her voice a mix of guilt and defense. You didn't answer any of my calls. I leaned back, arms crossed. You didn't answer the ones that mattered. So I guess we're even. She flinched, then slowly took a seat. There was a silence between us so thick, even the hum of the espresso machine couldn't cut through it. And then, like she couldn't bear it a second longer, she blurted out, I think someone's following me. I stared at her. That wasn't what I expected. Not an apology. Not denial. Not even excuses. But paranoia. That came out of nowhere. She went on, talking fast, eyes darting around the cafe like someone might be listening. He's not just some guy, Miles. The one you think I've been seeing. He's complicated. It started as flirting. I was stupid. But I pulled away. I swear I did. That night at the restaurant. I was telling him it was over. But I think he's been watching me ever since. I wanted to scream. To laugh. To shake her and say, you don't get to play the victim. But her voice, it didn't sound fake. It sounded scared. She reached into her purse and slid her phone across the table. Opened her photos. Look at this. There were screenshots of anonymous messages. Pictures taken from outside her yoga studio. Her car parked in front of our house. One shot, and this one made my blood freeze, showed her standing at our front door the night I locked her out, from across the street. Someone had been watching both of us. My mind started spinning. The voicemail. The photos someone had sent me. That man in the window reflection. I thought I was the only one being deceived. But now I wasn't sure if Margot had been playing me, or if we were both part of something neither of us understood. Who is he? I asked. She hesitated. His name's Dorian. He said he works in consulting. I met him at a work event. But nothing he ever told me checked out. I tried to stop seeing him, and he got weird. Weird how? He started showing up uninvited. Sending gifts to the office. One day he texted me saying he liked my perfume, only I hadn't worn it in 2 weeks. I don't know how he knew. That's when I got scared. That's when I realized he wasn't just some fling. The world around us felt suddenly too quiet, too small, like we were trapped in a room with walls that were slowly closing in. I wasn't sure what to believe. I still didn't trust her. But this? This was bigger than infidelity. She leaned in, whispering, I think he knows about you. I think he knows everything. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, I felt something worse than betrayal, I felt hunted. Leaving that cafe felt like walking out of one life and into another. My hands were still shaking as I started the car, but it wasn't from heartbreak anymore. It was adrenaline. Panic. A creeping realization that someone had been pulling strings behind the scenes, and we were both tangled in the same invisible web. Margot's story should have made me feel vindicated, like maybe I wasn't just the pathetic husband left in the dark. But it didn't. It made me feel exposed. Back at the house, my house now, I went straight to my office and locked the door. I pulled up everything, the anonymous email, the photos, even the voicemail. I listened again and again, searching for any hint in the stranger's voice. The words haunted me more now than they did before. She's lying to both of you. At first, I assumed he meant me and her. But now I was wondering, what if he meant her and someone else entirely? I opened the metadata on the photos I'd received, something I should have done weeks ago, but I'd been too emotional to think like a tech guy. One of the photos had location data. The GPS coordinates dropped a pin at an apartment complex I'd never heard of, about 40 minutes away, across town. I stared at it for a long time. I could have just deleted everything. Blocked her. Moved on. But something in my gut said no. This wasn't finished. Not even close. The next day, I drove out there. The complex was run down, the kind of place with cracked windows, metal stairs, and a general sense of, don't ask questions. I parked 2 streets away, walked the rest on foot. I didn't even know what I was looking for. A car. A sign. Maybe just confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind. I stood near a row of hedges and watched the entrance. And then I saw him. The man from the photos. Tall. Leather jacket. Confident walk. The kind of face you'd never forget, not because it was handsome, but because it looked like it had never flinched in a fight. He was coming down the steps, phone to his ear, not smiling. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I caught the tail end of it as he passed me on the sidewalk. She thinks she's clever. I told you, I'll handle it. He brushed past, never even looked at me. I waited until he was gone, then snapped a photo of his license plate as he pulled away. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I had it. Something. Anything. That night, I sent the photo to Margot with no message. She called me 30 seconds later. Where did you get that? She whispered like someone else might be listening. I saw him, I said. At the apartment. I followed the data from the photo you were in. Miles, she said, her voice shaking now, you shouldn't have done that. He's dangerous. He's not just some guy. I think he's been blackmailing someone at my company. I didn't answer. I just stared at the walls of my office, the wedding photos still on the shelf, the anniversary gift I never gave her still sitting in a drawer. Then she said something that chilled me to the bone. He asked me about you. Weeks ago. Not in passing, like he knew your name. Where you work. Where you bank. He knows you. I hung up. I didn't say a word. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure this was a story about a wife who cheated. It was starting to feel like a story about a man who was never supposed to find out what his wife was really involved in. And now I had. After I hung up the phone, I sat in total silence for what felt like an hour. Not even the clock dared tick. My hands were still on the desk, palms flat, like I needed to physically anchor myself to the room. The truth was shifting under me, fast and sharp like broken ice, and I could feel it cracking. Everything I thought I understood was disintegrating. I replayed Margot's voice in my head. Not the words, but the way she said them, tight, controlled, like she knew someone might be listening even through the phone. This wasn't guilt anymore. It wasn't shame. This was fear. And it wasn't just hers. It was starting to bleed into me. That night, I didn't sleep. I set up the security cameras around the house, rechecked all the doors, even taped the inside of the mail slot. I know it sounds paranoid, but when you realize your wife's affair partner knows your banking details, paranoia starts to look like common sense. I sat in the dark living room, phone in hand, trying to decide what to do. Call the police. Tell work. Move. Around 3:17 a.m., I got an email. No subject line. No sender name. Just an image attached. I hesitated before opening it, breath caught in my chest. It was a photo of me, taken earlier that day, standing near the apartment complex, looking straight ahead. Except I hadn't seen anyone holding a camera. I hadn't even sensed someone watching. That meant whoever took it was very, very good. Below the photo, one line of text. You don't know what she owes me. I dropped the phone. It skidded across the hardwood floor and thudded against the wall. I couldn't move. Couldn't even blink. I was being hunted. Not for revenge. Not even for curiosity. This was something else. Deeper. Older. Like I'd touched a part of her life that was never meant to be uncovered. I picked up the phone, hands trembling, and called Margot. She answered immediately, as if she'd been awake the whole time. I got a message, I said. I know, she whispered. I got one too. I swallowed hard. What does he want? There was a pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. He wants you out of the picture. He told me weeks ago, if I couldn't shut you up, he would. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a man obsessed with her. This was a man who used her. Who got close to her because of me. Who needed her access. Her proximity. Her passcodes. Her husband. She hadn't just cheated on me emotionally. She'd given him everything I had spent years building. Access to our lives. Our routines. Our vulnerabilities. And now he was done with her, and ready to erase the loose ends. Which meant me. I drove to my office that morning like it was a war zone. Every car that followed too long made my stomach knot. I locked the doors behind me. Pulled the blinds. Even rerouted the network firewall at work just to be sure. I didn't know what this man was after, but I knew I was done waiting to find out. Margot texted me again a few hours later. Meet me at my office. I found something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't respond. I just grabbed the USB drive from my desk, the one with copies of everything I'd backed up, including the photos, voicemail, and now the email, and I slipped it into my jacket. If this was the end of the road, I needed something to make sure I didn't go down without answers. Because this wasn't just my story anymore. And if she really did find something, it might be the key to figuring out why this all began. I wasn't sure what scared me more, that I had no idea what I was walking into, or that I was still willing to follow her there. Margot's office was in a sleek, glass-walled building downtown that always made me feel out of place. I stood in the lobby for a full 2 minutes, watching people glide by with their lanyards and overpriced coffee, wondering if any of them knew what she was tangled in, what I was now tangled in. I gave my name to the front desk, and the receptionist gave me a strange look, like she knew more than she let on, but she pointed me to the elevator without saying a word. When I reached her floor, Margot was already at the door, pacing. Her eyes were tired but alert, like someone who hadn't slept but was running on pure instinct. Without a word, she pulled me into a side conference room and locked the door behind us. Then she placed her laptop on the table and opened a file labeled with a code name I didn't recognize, pxcycle/red access. What am I looking at? I asked, already bracing for whatever twist she was about to throw at me. This is a shared drive. I was granted temporary access when I was helping with an internal campaign 2 months ago. It should have been disabled after the project ended, but someone forgot to remove my permissions. She tapped a folder. I was looking for a design file last night and stumbled onto this. She opened a document, and what I saw made my heart kick. It was a dossier. About me. Not just surface-level stuff, either. It had my full work history, my security clearance records from a software vendor I'd consulted for 3 years ago, and flagged correspondence between me and certain clients that were marked reviewed. There were tags attached, terms like potential access node, route asset, and empathic vector. I had no idea what any of it meant. You told me he wanted access, I said slowly, but this looks like it's part of something organized. I know, she whispered. That's why I think Dorian isn't just some obsessed guy. I think he's working for someone. Or with someone. She clicked into another folder, this one marked Targets, Phase 2. My name was listed. So was hers. And several others I didn't recognize. Each entry had timestamps. IP logs. Metadata trails. I felt sick just looking at it. What were you part of, Margot? I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. I didn't know, she said. I swear to you. I thought it was just some marketing data pull. But when I started getting messages from Dorian, when he mentioned things about you he shouldn't have known, I got curious. I dug a little deeper and realized the company had been running private background research on key employees' spouses, mostly the ones with government or tech-related jobs. You were on that list. I wanted to scream. To smash the laptop. Instead, I just leaned against the table, breathing like I'd run a mile. So this wasn't about love. Or betrayal. It was leverage. A setup. Someone needed access to me, and Margot was the way in. Except, she'd outlived her usefulness. Which meant we were both in the crosshairs now. Why are you showing me this? I finally asked, my voice dry. Because, she said, her tone cracking for the first time in weeks, I made a mistake, but if you don't help me, we're both going to disappear into something we'll never crawl out of. I stared at her for a long time. I hated her for what she'd done. But I hated the idea of being erased more. So I pulled out the USB from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Then we stop running, I said. We find out who's behind this. And we burn them to the ground. The moment we decided to stop running was the moment everything changed. Not just the direction of the story, but who I was. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting. I was choosing. Choosing not to be manipulated, not to be a pawn, not to be the sad man standing in the rain while someone else decided his fate. Margot and I spent the next 48 hours pulling every file, every trace, every document she still had access to. We didn't sleep. We didn't talk about us. We only focused on what we could still do, and who we could trust. I reached out to a former client of mine, someone I knew had ties to internal cybersecurity investigations. A quiet man. Careful. And powerful enough to care. I handed him the USB. Explained everything. At first, he didn't say much. Just nodded. Took it without questions. But 2 days later, he called. You just exposed something big, he said. Your name wasn't random. Neither was hers. But the people behind this? They're going to be cleaning up loose ends for a while. You're safe. For now. It wasn't exactly a happy ending, but it was enough. Margot resigned from her position. She moved in with her sister across town, and for once, we stopped pretending we were meant to go back to normal. The damage had been too layered, too deliberate. But we didn't need to keep punishing each other either. We had both been played. Both used. And weirdly, that made it easier to forgive, even if forgetting was never an option. As for me, I moved out of the house. Not because I was running. But because I wanted something different. A place that didn't smell like lies and cold dinners. I took a new job, same work, different city. Smaller apartment. Fewer people. Simpler life. And you know what? Peace doesn't come in loud, dramatic moments. It arrives slowly, like a phone that doesn't ring. Like a door that stays locked when you want it to. Like finally sitting on a couch and not wondering who else was there when you weren't. Sometimes, we think betrayal is the worst thing that can happen. But being manipulated into believing you don't matter? That's worse. Now, I know better. And I'll never let anyone shrink me again.